Hey everyone, welcome to the podcast. This one is for the Dive-In Festival. And for those that don't know, it's a global insurance festival celebrating diversity and inclusion. They've been going for a long time. It's a wonderful event. They have little events all over the world, panels, talks, things like that. We've been doing podcasts for them for a long time as well now, and I've spoken to some incredible people, and this one's no different. I've got an amazing lady called Aaida Abu Jaber. She is in Jordan. She's in PR and marketing for International General Insurance Co. And we speak about gender equality in the Middle East. We hear about her career, story, her journey. She talks a little bit about what things are like right now. And we have a little bit of a look to the future and what she thinks things are moving towards. It's a great insight into that region. It's a wonderful conversation, and I hope you enjoy it. Aaida, thank you so much for joining me. Great chat. In fact, we should have recorded our previous chat because I think we've got some good stuff. But anyway, thank you so much for joining me. And we're having a conversation. And the context is the Dive-In Festival. So this is a diversity and inclusion festival in the insurance industry. So for those maybe that don't know, that listen to this, it started in London. And very quickly, it's evolved and it's become a global festival for DEI in insurance. And Aaida, based in Jordan, you've been leading that charge in Jordan. I know you're experienced all over the MENA region. But look, thank you so much for joining me. And maybe just to kick off, can you introduce yourself? I want you to do yourself justice. So, please, like who you are, what's your background, and all of that would be great.
Thank you, Lewis, and thank you for having me. In preparation, I spent a couple of weeks listening to the podcasts you have on your show, and amazing people, interesting topics. So thank you for having me. The Dive-In Festival, I just want to tell you, it's the biggest diversity and inclusion festival in the world. So it's an insurance. It's in the insurance industry, but it's the biggest in the entire world. So that's amazing, and that's something that we should be proud of. I'm in the insurance industry, so I'm very proud of that. Now, a little bit of my background. So, Lewis, this is a conversation, so I'm going to put you to the test. I'm going to tell you about my early. I'm going to test you. So I'm going to tell you where I grew up, not where, but I'm going to tell you how I grew up, and you need to guess where that is. So I grew up in a place where I finished my high school. In that place, I learned how to play tennis and eventually became on the varsity team and on the national team of my country. I learned how to play the piano. I learned French. I took ballet lessons. So where do you think that place is, Lewis?
That could be anywhere. I'm going to say Jordan because I know that's where you're from.
Okay, so it is not in London. It wasn't in, let's say, New York, not Paris, but that was in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. Right. So, and this is where I'll tell you, sometimes there is perception, there is reality.
And you were born in Saudi.
No, I was brought up. So I was born in Jordan, right. But I was in Saudi since I was in the age of 1. For example. Amazing. And I grew up till the age of 16. So that's where I picked up all these things. So it's an odd place, but that's where I grew up. Then for university, I came to Jordan. I studied civil engineering. In my class, the ratio of females to male was 10%. So 1 in 10 were women. Then I went as a woman. This is, I'm telling you, late 80s, early 90s.
Just going back to Saudi. Saudi's great because, I think people's perception of Saudi, certainly back then, wasn't how you described it.
Absolutely. And that's why I wanted that shock element.
Yeah. No, love that. It's changing a lot now.
Now it's a different story, but I'm telling you, this is like in the 80s, and that's where I tell you sometimes perception and reality and a lot of topics we'll get into is, there is a lot of prejudices, there are a lot of perceptions, and sometimes reality is different.
Yeah. So how did you just quickly on Saudi? How was those early years in Saudi? You said you did so many things, ballet, tennis, this, that. Was it a good place to grow up back then?
So it was a wonderful place to grow up in because I had so many skills. So in addition to your education system, you have so many skills and hobbies. And so when I came, wherever I went in the world, I pursued these hobbies. Eventually, I told you in the tennis, I became part of the varsity team of Jordan and eventually the national team of Jordan. So I represented Jordan nationally. So, that was my beginnings. Um, then I studied master's at Duke University in the US, and that was also in civil engineering and transportation planning. Also, the ratio of men to women was 5 to 1. So that's also, I'm just showing you the male domination aspect of my life. I came back to Jordan, and here is the interesting part. I was so lucky. I came back in the middle of the Oslo Accords, the peace process, the Middle East peace process.
And what year was that? Just for...
So that was in 1993, I think the beginning of the 90s. So there were great leaders in our region and in the world who led this initiative where they saw a prosperous future for the Middle East. The leaders, Clinton, Sadat, King Hussein, Arafat, Rabin, people in the region who wanted to see real peace. So this is the background. So I'm in Jordan, done transportation planning, and I get a call from the Ministry of Transport, and they said that come and the minister wants to meet with you. So I'm 25, and I go and meet the Minister of Transport, and he says, we're drafting this peace accord with Israel. So there are, the different sectors, there is water, energy, transport. And we want you, since you're specialized in transportation, we want you to be on the, as a consultant, on the negotiating team of drafting the transport peace agreement with Israel. Amazing. So I'm 25, I'm a woman, and the only woman in those peace negotiations from both sides. So that is where I grew up. Amazing times, Louis. There was this future, these big projects. And then, unfortunately, Rabin was assassinated. Israel, the more right-wing government took over. And look where we are now.
How did you find all those conversations back then? Young, only female. Like, how did it all?
It was so exciting. I was euphoric. I was nervous. I was afraid. I was everything. And I had so many, the minister became like a mentor. And it was just amazing time. That's why I feel so lucky, Louis. And I had to mention that because at such a young age to be subjected, to be in the same room as these big leaders, Sadat, from Egypt, or Arafat, or King Hussein, okay, I was a small fry sitting in the back, but it's just something you never forget in your life. And I'm just so privileged and happy to have been part of that. Yeah.
And how has that shaped your journey? Was that pivotal for you?
Okay, so that was very pivotal because when that fell apart, I was very let down. I felt disappointed, and I decided to leave the government and the public sector and went into the private sector. And there, over the years now, I'm working in the insurance industry, another male-dominated industry. So basically, all my life has been in places, in areas, in situations that have been male-dominated. But I had all the support. I feel I was privileged to have been in all areas of my life and experiences in male-dominated situations. And I was supported and I was helped and I was never looked upon as less. And that is just such a great experience that when I looked at statistics of the MENA region, which is the Middle East and North Africa, and it is the lowest region in female employment and female empowerment in the world, that shocked me because my personal experience was totally, totally different to the experience of my region. And that's where I think maybe I got some motivation, number one, to find out why, and number two, to try to do something about it.
So just starting on the why, what did you discover?
So it wasn't me, but there are people and institutions who have been working on this. And I've worked with some of them and been liaised with some of them. So there is the main reason. And I think there is the implicit reason. So the main reason, where you will see statistics and surveys, and they'll tell you that it is childcare, availability of childcare, cost of childcare, blah, blah, blah. But the implicit reason is more in gender bias, an implicit gender bias that is societal and cultural in the MENA region. You know what I'm saying? It is in how you're brought up in the family, where the male member is perceived as stronger, more responsible for the female in that. That's societal and cultural of the MENA region.
Right. And so historically, then, just finish it. So historically, in the family, the men are supposed to go and like be the main breadwinner, earn the money,
yes.
And then if you step that down to kind of like sons and daughters, would you then find the sons would be, go to university and get a job, and the daughters wouldn't be pushed in the same direction, or like how would it work in that unit?
I think in that unit, basically both will go to university, but then the man will work and the woman will get married and stay at home and be,
Right.
take care of the home, the kids, the food. So that's because, also the Middle East has the highest literacy rate. So the Middle East has the highest literacy rate, and everybody's well educated and everybody's has gone to university. It's just that the women then when they become, part of a family, they will stay at home and the men will go. But let me give you some historical background, because this is also interesting, US. In the 1970s, there was the oil boom, and the biggest resources of oil in the world are in the MENA region. So one member of the family was making so much, there was such high wages, it was making so much money that was supporting multiple dependent family members. So there was no need for two people to work, right? Then in the late 1980s, there is this big economic recession in the region. Now we are giving priority to men who are the family, take care of the family, who are the breadwinners. So women have to step aside, and men have to be given the chance to go into the job market, because the economic situation is so bad. So it's only in the 1990s that this gender equality, female employment movement started to, take action.
Right. And so how has it evolved? Love to hear that. And then where are we today? Like, what's the state of play and so forth?
So as I told you, in the 1990s it started, but I want to tell you today. Today, there is such a big change, and it's on multiple levels. So basically, the economic situation is not that good. So both members, women and men, need to work. That's number one. 60% of the MENA region population is under the age of 25, Lewis. So there are these young people who are exposed to social media, who see the world, who see people working, women working everywhere in the world. So they are getting inspired. Then I told you there is also these biases, the implicit gender biases in the education system, where you have books, where you have the woman in the kitchen and the man is going to work. So this is also changing. The education system and the curriculums are changing. So, all these things are giving grace to changes in the perception of how people are getting employed and who needs to work. And I think if we have this conversation a few years down the road, all the indicators are going to show better numbers for the MENA region in terms of female empowerment and women employment.
Yeah, interesting. I love that. So there seems to be, just to kind of summarize what you mentioned, so almost two drivers. There was the economic driver of like difficult times, both often in a family unit, that the husband and wife or whatever both need to then contribute and earn money, and so that was a driver. And then interestingly, you mentioned social media, and for sure that's clearly the driver, because I think, as you mentioned, women, you can see strong, successful women in senior positions all over the world, and it's inspiring for young women, right? As they come up and they grow up, there's something to aim for and to something to shoot for. And I think, and then people dream, right? and you start to want different things from
Absolutely.
life.
Absolutely. That's a great summary, Lewis. Yes.
The other point to mention as well, and I just love to get your thoughts on this, because I've been having this conversation a lot here, and so even if I look at my own social circle, females, my female friends, and I would say probably all of them have done better at university and in education than the men have, and all of that stuff. But it's interesting because when they start to have a family and children, you then see it's interesting because then there's quite a lot that don't want to get a senior position. They actually want to bring up their family, they want to bring up their kids, they might want to do part-time work, and almost there's this interesting conversation to be had around, like, I think choice is great, right? Like, you should be able to choose. If I want to, if you want to do this position, you want to become a CEO, or you want to become the prime minister or whatever, you can do that as a woman. But also, it's also fine to take the other route. It's also fine not to want to do that. It's also fine to want to spend time with your kids and bring your kids up and so forth. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think that is so correct. Women do choose that. And it's very interesting because we did do a survey, and it was part of actually our Dive In initiative. In 2022, we did a survey, a market-wide survey, on trying to find out why women, this is in the insurance industry, but I think it applies everywhere, why women don't reach executive positions, and why they don't reach into boards, why their proportion is not that high. And it's exactly what you said. It's women in their certain period of time where they need to take off, and they feel, as a mother, maybe they feel more responsible, that they need to bring up the kids, they need to take that time off, so they take that time off. And then when the kids are a little bit older, they enter the job market, so they have lost a good, let's say, 10 years of their professional life to do that. That's something that's very important to their heart. But then they are productive, they have the brains, they have the technical and educational background. When they get back, there are the men who never stopped. And these men have advanced and they've gone ahead. And the women are now lagging by about 10 years. How do we support these women? There are also the women, and women also remember that when they enter at that age, and because of the late childbearing age of women, let's say in the West, women are now in menopause. Now, and this is also a subject that's very contentious, and we did tackle that. And you find out that it is one of the factors that is an impediment also for women to progress or to reach leadership positions. There are things that are going on physically and emotionally in a woman's body. And then there is the care for the elderly. Don't forget that, Lewis. So the kids are older, but the parents are also older, and somebody needs to take care of them. And who does that? Is the woman. Look at this responsibility on women. So of course, yes, all these factors do contribute to, not helping women progress as much as men and reach those executive levels and reach board rooms, because there is so much happening in their life and so much responsibility that lies upon them during the course of their lives.
No, 100%. You touched on some, absolutely. It's interesting because if you do want to, as a woman, you then have to go and hire help. Well, either or your husband stays at home and he's a stay-at-home father. Fine. And you're seeing that a bit more. You're seeing that more in the West. I don't know about MENA. Love to hear your thoughts on it. But you see that a bit here. Or you have to hire in help, right? So you have nannies, housekeepers, and all of those kind of things, which a lot of people have to do. And then like I was speaking to a friend of mine, and she's amazing, like CEO, big company, and she was talking the other day, and she said, I feel guilty because I don't see my kids. I have all these people looking after my kids. I don't see my kids. It's a choice that she made, and it's a choice that she had to make to get to where she wanted to get to. It's interesting, right? What are you seeing the same?
It's interesting,
in
but it's sad. It's absolutely the same in MENA, but there are much less women in those positions, right?
Yeah.
And it's sad, because women have to make that compromise, have to make that trade-off, And in the MENA, it's worse because, women and men are still not equal when it comes to taking care of the children. That mentality maybe is now changing, because I told you 60% of the population is really very young, and maybe that mindset will change, but it will take time. It's still, on the woman to be, to take care of the family. And I told you, one of the main factors was also, childcare. It's expensive here. It's not that available like it is in the West. It's a new concept, because women are supposed to take care of the children. So even these centers are not that abundant, and some of them are very expensive, and some of them are far away. So it's much more difficult in the MENA region than it is in elsewhere.
And is that the cultural aspect as well of, is it difficult emotionally for a woman to be like, right, I'm going to get someone else to look after my kids. I don't want to miss out on that 10-year gap. I want to progress just as quickly as the guy I'm sitting next to, so to speak. Is it like, is there social pressure not to do that?
I think it's not an internal pressure, because the woman wants to, but it's a social pressure. It may be from the husband, but it may not just be from the husband. Maybe just from her mother, who is from another generation, and the mother would say, "Why would you leave your kids to somebody to take care of, or send them to a."
Right.
So it's a lot of pressure on the woman, and it's not just male pressure. It's the females, who are also pressurizing you. It's the other females who don't work, who have chosen to stay at home, who your friends, who you go out with, who will say, well, you're not taking care of your kid. Your kid is not as neat or as taken care of as our kids. There's that pressure a lot in the MENA region.
Yeah, it's interesting. A friend of mine, she's a chief human resources officer. She's done amazing, and she wanted to pursue a nice, a career, and she did it, and she organized, her family and stuff well. She was picking up her kid from school, and so she went to school, and there was a group of mums that were also picking up their kids, and they said, "Oh, do you want to come to the coffee morning? We organized a coffee morning. We haven't seen you before and stuff." And she's like, "Oh, I can't. I've got to go to work. I'm just dropping my kid off." And one of the ladies said to her, "Oh, poor you. Doesn't your husband earn enough money?"
Exactly. You see, it's the peer pressure also, and it's worse here. So it's more difficult here.
Unbelievable. How can we change that? How can we change that? The next day, I don't know, look ahead 5-10 years. Like, what things do you think we need to do as a society that we're not doing?
I'll tell you. I think it's women maybe who were maybe fortunate. I'm among maybe a small percentage who was fortunate. What I'll tell you, it's twofold. What we have done, like on a personal scale, for regionally, I've joined. I can't do anything alone. Nobody can do anything alone. But if you're part of a group of people who are of similar minds, you get together and maybe you can change the mindset. So I'm part of an organization here it's actually a social group. It's called Women as Partners in Progress, and it's made up of women leaders in the region who come from the private sector, public sector, government, from the Senate, from the parliament. So these are big influential women who have gotten together, and we're trying together through initiatives, through actions, through studies, each in her own area, to try to promote, female empowerment. Internationally, you mentioned the Dive-In. We've partnered with the Dive-In Festival. A Dive-In Festival is celebrating 10 years this year. Amazing initiative, 50 countries, 6 continents, so many events taking place worldwide. And we are so proud to have partnered with them for the past 7 years. We have tackled issues such as harassment in the workplace. We have tackled, as I told you, impediments to reaching executive levels, education, and all this is in the MENA region and in Jordan. So, it's regionally what you can do and internationally what you can do. And the best way is to join forces with people who are already working on this, and to work together collectively to try to make a difference and to better the situation and support women.
Yeah. Love that. I love that. It's great to hear that you're leading the way. Interesting just thoughts. There's a big obviously we had COVID, and one of the things of COVID was this remote work, flexible working, whatever, and different companies all over the world have arrived at a different thing. Where are you at with that? And specifically, do you think that's enabled more women to go back, go back to work, but just continue to work if they're able to flex where they work from rather than going to an office 5 days a week.
Absolutely. I think what COVID has done has benefited the West a lot, because women in the West, I mean, the work, the hybrid or work from home model worked, and it worked for a very long period of time. So it wasn't for months, it was for over a year. So I think in the West, it has, it has changed the mindset of people that, you can do this. And I think it is so lucky for women there, where they are lucky because they have now the chance to do that, and they know it can be successful. So it has opened a lot of opportunities and the job market to them. I think with the MENA, yes, it's been beneficial, but not on par with the rest of the world still.
For what reason?
This work from home, because this work from home concept, it's not very successful, here. I think there isn't still that much trust on, making people work from home and trust that they can, a lot of the population is young. So maybe that's part of it. So the young people sleep late, they tend, not to maybe sign in early. Maybe it's just ideas. Women are at home, they still are cooking. They still need to take care of the kids. Maybe they might not give as many hours. I don't know what the reason is. Maybe there are trust issues between the higher, the management, and it's just not as successful in the MENA region. I think maybe more studies should take place to try to address this issue, because it's sad. I'm one of the persons who cannot work from, I live very far away from my workplace, but I'm not allowed to work from home, right? So because I'm in Jordan and they don't do that, and I need to check in and I commute 1 hour coming, 1 hour going. I think this needs to change, but there has to be a mindset. So it's unfair to say it's the institutions that are doing that. It's the people, it's the culture, it's mutual. There has to be, the people have to live up to being more professional and to giving those hours, and the managements and the executives need to also give that trust. And it's a mutual process where people can meet in the middle. But for MENA, it hasn't been, the work from home model hasn't been as successful, unfortunately.
Interesting. So by and large, and I recruit a lot in that region as well. I run a global exec search firm. I mean, a lot of folks I speak with are in 5 days a week in the office. It's interesting, but I think that things will evolve. It took a long time to evolve here. The conversation around flexible working was going on long before COVID, and the flexible working often was related to women, I think, a lot of the time, because it enabled them, if there's flexibility, enables women who otherwise wouldn't be able to work. Maybe they do have to pick the kids up and so forth, and responsibilities at home to do work. I mean, it could be, it's part-time work, 3 days a week or something, or different hours. So there was that conversation that was going on here before COVID. And then when COVID hit, everyone was at home. Everyone, right? And suddenly, it was crazy, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, carry on.
I think, what I wanted to say is that, you have to look at it just like a barter. So you have the commute time, right? And if the woman is working from home and giving some more time maybe to her health, maybe working out half an hour, cooking that meal and all that, and you can just say that this equals that. So if your commute is around, and commute everywhere is very long, okay, so it's at least 1.5 hours both ways. So if the woman is doing the same but taking care of her own well-being and family's well-being, then it's fair to both parties. Do you agree?
I think so. Yeah, look. Well, the wonderful thing is I've got 3 daughters, and I dropped and over COVID I had 2, and so I would. My wife works. She works in hospital, and she was working in intensive care over COVID. So she was going in with all of the staff and treating people who were critically ill. And I was, and the schools enabled me to drop my children at school because my wife was a key worker. So I was dropping my wife off. I'm sorry, my kids off at school, And there were more and more. I started to see more and more dads drop their kids off, and I always used to drop my kids off at school before COVID, and it was like I was like probably one of a few dads that did that. Now, when I drop my kids off, or even if I pick them up from school, I mostly drop them off. It's a lot more equal, which is really nice. You know, like there's more dads and stuff, which means that, you know, on the flip side, you know, maybe more women are working, whether it's full time or part time. But that's one of the nice things, you know, that's come out of it.
I think one of the nice things, I think, Lewis, if there are more dads like Lewis, the world would be a better
Wow.
place. So
Well, I
that's
don't
what
know
I
about
think.
that. I'm just trying. I'm trying.
No, but that's it. It's just trying. It's
But
doing that. It's taking the kids. It's a big thing, and if more dads did that, I think, it's just amazing, So it's
thank
just
you.
that change in perception and in mentality and in how things are done. And the young people are seeing that. The young generation, things are changing. We have the Gen Z are totally different. I think they will
Yeah.
make some changes and there'll be better opportunities for both
100%. But it's
genders.
also interesting when I'm you know, only have daughters, and you're like, right, I want them to be whatever they want them to themselves to be, right? No ceiling, no limit to what they can achieve, dream big, the whole thing, right? But also, if like, you know, if one of my daughters wants to be this, I don't know, the prime minister of the UK, great. We've had female prime ministers. I mean, she can do it. She's seen them.
Yes.
She can do it. But also, if one of my daughters turns around and says, you know what, like, she might be the brightest of all three, but I want to look after my kids, and I want to bring them up and take them to. I think that's cool too. You know, I just want them to be able to have
Absolutely.
the opportunity to choose what they want to do, and be able to get there and have no barriers, bar skill, ability, attitude. You know, the things that, you know, that set people apart. You know, not gender. You want people to, you know, to be able to start the start line and then go for it.
Absolutely. Inclusion is not just about gender, but remember, women are 50% of the population. So it's really a good place to start. It's the only place to start. And then you can follow with all the other aspects. But you have to start with, empowering women. I'm so happy that, when you have daughters, and as a father, to think that way and to respect her choice, whether she decides to go to work or stay at home, that's amazing. And then she's given that control over her life and how she wants to live it. And that's nice. So it's not the society, it's not the family, it's not the husband, the father, the brother. It's her that makes the decision, and you respect that. And that's amazing news.
Yeah, well, you got to try. Certainly from early on, right? Like those early years, I think that's where your brain gets wired. Is how you treat them, how you treat your kids, men or women.
And that's what
Because
you're,
again,
yeah.
no, sorry. So I was just going to say that, you know, because expanding that out is, you want a fair society for all, right? That's
But remember also the curriculums, with us, we found that in curriculums, there are these hidden biases. There are hidden gender biases in the books that the kids are reading. And that's where, that's what they're taking from the age of 3 and 4. They're looking at these books. And that needs to also change. So it's how you are at home, the environment they are with at home, and also at school. So these two factors will play a big role in changing these perceptions and
definitely,
inequalities.
definitely, definitely. No, no, I completely agree. It's interesting, and it seems like we're a little bit ahead maybe here, but you're catching up quick. And you're right. Your demographics in your region and in Africa, MENA, you know, all of that all of the, just there's so many young, motivated people that want to do well in life. And I think it's, you know, it's building nicely. And I think if it's, you know, if as long as it's done in the right way, and these people have the opportunity to do better than their parents, let's say, you know, just to keep moving forward and keep moving forward, we'll be in a good spot. I think, look, you know, the world is not fair. It never will be, right? But it's good. I think it's a good thing to aim for, is just to keep progressing and keep moving forward. And I think, yeah, look, the stuff you're doing is great, and you know, well done on all of that. So,
I
great
think
place.
optimism is, this is optimism. Yeah, the
Yes.
optimism is so important. And being optimistic gets you a lot of stuff. And what you just said is just, it's about optimism. It's about just knowing that what is going to come is better. And that mindset is just amazing, especially for the MENA region. People are so, we've been through so many wars and conflicts. It's just people cannot get that optimism, because whenever you're a bit optimistic, things happen that make you sad and upset and disappointed. And our region has been just through too much, and
Yeah.
just to keep that optimism and hope going is in itself very important.
Yeah, things happen in life, wherever you might be living or growing up or whatever, right? I mean, I'm like an eternal optimist. I can't help it. But many things happen, right? So I think, I think for me, as certainly talk about school, right? I'd love to, and you look at what's going on all over the world, and you go on social media, you go on the news, wherever it might be, everyone's arguing. Everyone's arguing, right? Everyone's trying to convince someone that their way is right and the other person's way is wrong. What I would really love to see, and for me, the way to understand is through listening, right? Listening to understand, not listening to respond. So many people you see in the world are listening to respond, to argue a point. And I think that for me, the way out of a lot of the stuff that we're going through globally is if more people listen to understand the other, like curious, like really listening, then I think we can start moving in the right direction. Everyone's got a different perspective on the world, a different point of view, all of these kind of things. But really, like that listening to understand is key. Whether it's like global issues or whether it's just even getting on in your company and your work, right? Because people like people that listen to them. And when you listen to someone, it's so powerful. There's this quote that like often the most intelligent person in the room is the one that says the least, right? Because they're listening and
That's
they're
correct.
understanding. And for me, like, as I bring up my kids, that's for me like one of the key things, one of the key skills, as AI comes in and all of this stuff, right? I think one of the big human skills that you can develop is that listening, because then you really understand. And I just don't see that happening. There's so much just arguing and debating and misunderstanding, because when you're not listening to someone, you assume that they, whatever you might assume. And then that leads you down the wrong path a lot of the time. So I'd love to see that, be taught at school. Next to, you're great at speaking, join the debating society. That's just classic, right? But listening skills, it's so important. And I think it can, stand you in good stead.
I think that's so important, that listening, that has been challenging for me, because I'm thinking, you're saying that, and it's right. And but when I'm in meetings, and women are a minority in these big, let's say, executive level meetings, and if you're too quiet, then maybe you're perceived as weak. So I'm always under pressure that I need to say something, and I need to contribute, and that's a pressure.
Yeah.
But I agree, because saying nothing is better than saying something foolish, right? So, and about social media, yes, 100%. The social media is also, unfortunately, given a platform for everybody, the ones who know and the ones who don't know, and the ones, just everybody, to just talk, and nobody's listening. Everybody's just talking, posting pictures and talking and writing, and nobody's listening. You're so right.
Yeah.
I wish the world would listen more, and
I
that's
would
that's
love
key.
that. I'd love that to happen. And social media is crazy, because I think another thing is also being very discerning with the information that you take in, because now there's so much around, right? And when I was growing up, and when you were growing up, you'd watch a video, and basically the two people you're watching are talking to each other, and that that's true, right? That they're sitting in the same room talking. Now with AI and all of this stuff, you can watch a video on any whatever platform, and you can't put your hand on your heart and say those people were definitely there next to each other talking, saying what they're saying, because there's just, it's just, I think these young folks now are wandering into an age where they're on the phone and they're scrolling, and they're building up a picture of the world through all of these things they're seeing, and they've got to be, I think, people very discerning with the information, and make and check and validate. It's a really, really important thing. I think that's gonna get more and more important as time goes on.
Lewis, adults don't check and validate, let alone, you're expecting kids to do that.
No,
It's
right.
just so, right? And so it's so,
Yeah,
you're right, it's so dangerous. Yet, I'm a big proponent of advancement technology. I think the world, there is no limit to the human mind. So, AI, let it be AI, and let then the human mind think of how to, I don't want to say regulate it, but how to, handle it, let's say, and try to, protect the kids or protect ourselves. But yet we need to not stand in the way of advancement, in the way
absolutely.
of moving forward. So, and just and understand what are the risks. And when you know what the risks and dangers are, I think you're more able to deal with them.
100%. I love AI. I love tech. I think my message is just go in with your eyes wide open. And when it's,
Yes.
when we're talking about conversation, listening, information, all of those things, don't just blindly believe what, your favorite Instagrammer believes. You might believe some of them, of some of what that person believes. You don't believe all of it. So get, be picky, be curious, go down some, fact check, listen to people, like just educate yourself. I think the
And
people that
listen
do
to
that,
both sides listen to
and
both sides of the story, because part of our problem here in the MENA, we're listening to ourselves. There is another perspective, and we are so not willing to listen to the other perspective because we've been through so much. But generally, it's just no matter how difficult it is to listen to your, let's say, opponent, you need to listen to your opponent and see where he's coming from, just for the sake of being able to handle him or maybe conquer him or whatever. But you need to listen, and we tend not to do. We listen to each other just so that we can to be for the affirmative effect, just to for all of us to say yes, we're all right, and it's the herd instinct, we're all together. But we need to listen to the other side, no matter how difficult or tough it is.
I agree with your point completely. And I made a point of about a few years ago, really listening to people that I disagree with. I like watching a video because when you're on like YouTube, I can't respond to them, right? I'm watching them, so I have
Yeah.
to say nothing. And so even if I really fundamentally disagree with absolutely everything, and it's difficult to watch, I want to listen to understand. So my point earlier, not to conquer them or to debate them or whatever, but just like you want to understand where people are coming from. Everyone has a different perspective, right? And again, at some point you can come in and meet somewhere in the middle, which ultimately you have to do if you want to make peace or make friends or whatever it might be, right? At some point you got to go there,
And it's
and that's
tough,
from
Lewis.
being
It's
curious.
tough to listen to
Absolutely.
something you disagree with, so you're like
Very.
wanting to.
It's yeah, it feels like, oh,
It's not easy, yeah.
it's not easy. It's not easy. So I don't know if we're going to solve world peace
Absolutely,
right now in
yes.
this conversation, but you know what? I think these conversations are amazing, right? Because it pushes us forward a little bit, and I think we're moving in the right direction. And certainly with all the stuff that you're doing with gender equality in Jordan and wider, I think everyone's talking, and through conversation, I think we can move forward.
I think absolutely, and the future looks good. We have to be optimistic. Things will change. Things will become better. I know for sure for the MENA region in terms of gender equality, and things are going to be much better. And the next time we talk, you're going to see some big changes, I'm sure.
I love it. I love it. Ida, thank you so much for joining me. And maybe we'll get to do one in person. If you come to London or I come to Jordan, we could do it in the studio, and kind of get a
You
check
come
of
to
where we've
Jordan.
been at.
I've come to London. You've never been in Jordan. So I've been
I've
in
not.
London. So you can need to come to Jordan and we have the conversation here, and that would be fantastic. And you'll get
I'd love to.
also to see something, this part of the world and how things are. It's just amazing.
I would absolutely love to. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And yeah, thanks everyone for joining. Thanks for listening. Hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you so much.